In 1949, as Britain's railway empire declared steam obsolete, a secret team unveiled the most advanced locomotive ever built, so radical that 5 prototypes were ordered before the public even knew it existed. It promised to outpace progress itself. Instead, it vanished in disgrace within 3 short years. Why would a machine this daring be remembered as a failure? The answer begins in the restless mind of one man. Oliver Bulleid worked in the shadow of a changing world. As British railways moved to erase steam from the future, he refused to let the old ways fade without a fight. In the quiet hours after the workshops emptied, Bulleid's mind kept circling the same problem: how to give steam a second life in a world already chasing diesel and electric power. Letters from 1946 and 1947 reveal a man driven by more than nostalgia. He wrote of engines that could run in either direction, of power bogies and smooth sides, of crews walking through mirrored corridors from one end to the other. The design he imagined was unlike anything on the rails. A locomotive with cabs at both ends, an offset boiler, and a central corridor that split the machine down its length, letting driver and firemen pass like reflections. This vision demanded secrecy. Bulleid knew the risks of ridicule and resistance, so he pressed on quietly, sketching possibilities while the world outside declared steam finished. His persistence paid off in a way few expected. Without fanfare, a confidential order for 5 prototypes was signed, enough to turn a dream into steel and rivets. The project would be built out of sight, away from headlines and doubters, sanctioned not by public consensus, but by the conviction of a handful of railwaymen who still believed in reinvention. Bulleid's ambition was not just technical, but personal, a wager that innovation could outpace obsolescence. With approval granted, the solitary hours at the drafting table gave way to the first stirrings of industry. Brighton works would soon come alive, and the leader's mirrored corridors would shift from paper to reality. Brighton works roared to life as the first sheets of steel for the leader were hauled across the factory floor. Sparks flew from welding torches, boots rang against concrete, and the air buzzed with a sense of something first taking shape. Word spread quickly. This was no ordinary engine. Workers gathered in small knots, trading rumors about its shape and purpose, glimpsing the smooth, almost unbroken sides of the casing as panels were riveted in place. Some grinned, others shook their heads, but every pair of eyes was drawn to the growing machine. By early November 1949, anticipation spilled beyond the factory gates. On the morning of November 3rd, crowds pressed along the Brighton platform, umbrellas and newspapers in hand, waiting for the first public reveal. Children craned their necks for a better view, their faces reflected in the glossy sides of the locomotive. Veteran railwaymen, their uniforms pressed and arms folded, watched in silence, weighing hope against experience. The leader stretched nearly 58 feet, with twin cabs at each end, and a central corridor hidden behind a futuristic shell. It looked more like something from the underground than the countryside, a promise, in steel, that the age of steam could still surprise. Reporters scribbled notes as flashbulbs popped. Headlines the next day called it Britain's answer to the diesel. The leader's unveiling was more than a spectacle. It was a challenge thrown down in full view of a nation. In that moment, expectation ran high. The future of steam stood gleaming on the rails, ready for its initial test. On the test track, the leader thundered forward with a confidence that caught even seasoned observers off guard. Timing instruments in the dynamometer car recorded a clean sprint to 90 miles per hour, a number that matched the best of Southern Railway's old Pacifics. This was not a streamlined giant from the 1930s, but an engine that ran just as easily in reverse as forward, its twin cabs and mirrored corridor making every run feel like a trick of perspective. Railway officials, notebooks in hand, watched as the leader accelerated a 480-ton train and held the timetable without flinching. For a few minutes, all the doubts faded. The engine's chain-driven bogies gripped the rails, delivering power with a smoothness that made the heavy consist seem to float. Drivers swapped stories in the mess room about the way she surged out of stations, her response crisp, the ride steady even at speed. One remarked that it was like handling an electric locomotive, instant, direct, and almost effortless. There was pride on the footplate. The men at the controls, used to the quirks and groans of aging steamers, found themselves at the helm of something that felt almost futuristic. Eyes flicked to the dials, then to the scenery rushing past, mile after mile. The leader kept her promise. For a brief window, she was more than an experiment. She was proof that steam still had fight left, that old ideas could be reborn with new ambition. The numbers on the dynamometer sheets told the story: speed, power, and the hope of a second wind for steam. Cab doors slammed shut with a hollow clang, sealing the crew inside a world of heat and noise. The leader's sleek, enclosed body trapped warmth like a kiln. Even on mild days, the fireman's compartment became stifling, steam, coal dust, and hot metal pressing in from every side. Sweat ran down faces and soaked through shirts. Drivers and firemen swapped stories of burning hands on levers, of breathless hours spent shoveling coal with no breeze to break the suffocating air. Maintenance teams, called in after each run, faced their own ordeal. The engine's promise of easy servicing vanished once panels were pried open. Oil bath gear, meant to run clean and smooth, leaked and frothed, coating everything in a slick film. Fitters crawled through narrow gaps, tools slipping from tired fingers as they tried to reach hidden valves and jammed chains. Paperwork piled up, logs of missed schedules, reports of breakdowns, lists of parts warped by heat. The strain reached its peak in the Crowborough Tunnel. 6 draftsmen, riding to monitor performance, found themselves gasping as a vacuum sucked the air from the corridor. For a moment, the only sound was the frantic hammering on the cab wall, the train thundering on while men inside struggled for breath. No official record lists what was said in the dark, but afterward, the silence in the mess room spoke volumes. Exhaustion became routine. Firemen stepped down at the end of their shift with faces drawn and eyes rimmed red. The leader's radical design, once a symbol of hope, was becoming a test of endurance. Confidence drained away, replaced by a quiet dread of the next turn in the schedule. Policy drift arrived quietly, not with debate or headlines, but as a matter of routine. British Railways, under pressure to modernize, turned its attention to the promise of diesel and electric power. Boardroom discussions weighed costs and reputations, studying reports that showed new engines running cleaner and more reliably than even the boldest steam experiment. In March 1951, a cancellation notice was issued. No ceremony, just a memorandum filed among many. The leader's future vanished in a few lines of official text, its fate decided not by a single failure, but by the steady advance of a different vision for Britain's railways. Diesel shunters and electric units began to fill timetables, each new order another step away from steam. The experiment ended not with a crash, but with a silence that settled over the empty shops at Brighton. Workshops that once echoed with the clatter of tools now stand in muted half-light. The leader sits motionless, its smooth flanks streaked with dust, a silent shape in the emptiness. Benches are cleared, chalk marks fading on the floor. A handful of workers linger by the doors, their outlines blurred against the last glow of overhead lamps. No voices, no orders, just the faint hum of distant machinery and the slow drip of water from a leaking roof. The locomotive's windows reflect nothing but the dark, its boiler cold. For those who pass through, the absence is heavier than any verdict. The project's end is not declared. It is simply felt in the spaces left behind. Innovation rarely waits for permission or perfect timing. Today, every high-speed rail line owes something to risks once ridiculed and abandoned. Progress depends on those who dare to push ahead, even when the world isn't ready. Sometimes the future arrives disguised as a failure. Thanks for watching.